You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! They score! Verhage was also jamming away. It's a power play goal for the IceDogs. And they score! Hosang, first goal as an IceDog. Strom stops Shipley. Richie scores! Gets it to Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
Welcome into another Niagara IceDogs game recap right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, live on our YouTube channel. Thank you to all those that are tuning in on our YouTube channel today, and to those listening the next day on our on-demand audio platforms. Please give us some love, whatever one you chose to listen to us today. The Dog Pound Podcast is the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all four of their great Niagara region locations. Brandon Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you to break down the IceDogs' only home preseason game of the 24-25 preseason schedule. With that said, 5-2, the Brantford Bulldogs take it after the IceDogs got the better hand of them on Friday up in Brantford. But with that said, Cam, looked like the IceDogs' tale of two games. First period and maybe a little bit of the second looked really good. And then they got taken to by the Brantford Bulldogs, and we'll hear from head coach Ben Boudreau as well as Ethan Zada in our postgame. But what were your initial thoughts of the game tonight?
Yeah, that first period and really the first half of the game, it looked like you got a real glimpse of the new IceDogs with some massive acquisitions, especially the entire blue line essentially being reworked. I think that we saw flashes of the future as well. Brady Wasselin had a fantastic game and also chipped in on the score sheet, but it just looked a lot cleaner on the offensive side. You got Oshko, who looks like he's going to make an immediate impact. Kevin's back again after him getting drafted, and Rubrick ready for his second season in the OHL along with Zada. So everything just looked really good top to bottom, and really Flores didn't really have to do much in that first half of the game. However, everything flipped about, I would say, 5 or 6 minutes into that second period. Flores had to make a number of 2-on-1 and breakaway saves. It was really stemming from an ugly 4-on-4, and after that moment it was all Brantford again, and it just kind of brought back shades of last year, to be honest with you. But I got to be honest, the look and the flashes that we did see were stuff that we never saw last year in terms of the offensive side of things, and really defensively as well.
Yeah, we'll get into all of the post-game stats from tonight's game against the Brantford Bulldogs. The IceDogs will have a week off, like most teams, before they get into their final preseason game up in Windsor before the regular season begins in late September. Cam, I know they're going to have some players that are going to be leaving in Virgilio, Van Vliet, Jack Brody, possibly a couple others as well. Lashko, most likely, as well, to Seattle's prospect camp. So with some of those guys out of the lineup, and if they don't get back right away, you'd expect some guys to step up. I know Max Crete was the extra forward tonight, and DeWatcher was an extra defenseman. But what have you liked from those guys that they've brought in the offseason so far, and really revamping the decor, as we talked about in our first training camp video?
Well, Lashko was an extreme surprise. It happened right after the training camp, essentially, and he was able to, they were able to get that done and get him added on the team, and he looked fantastic offensively. There was a lot of give-and-go plays that were really impressive, and he looked like he meshed really well with Rubrick. And, again, the creativity that you're going to see from them, because they are obviously the most skilled offensive players, or among them on the team, and you really saw that. But I think one of the more impressive things was the decor being extremely physical. Obviously they had a really tough second half of that game, but I thought that the physicality was definitely improved over last year. We had a D-core that was very young in terms of a couple of rookies like Frolov and Podrekar, but they weren't overly physical, and I think that they went out and addressed that in the offseason. And Van Vliet and Brody, as well as Blair Scott, had a really good game on the physicality side, and even Nick Frasca, to be honest with you. So I was impressed with from that standpoint, and that's going to have to continue as you get in closer to the season. But the physicality, especially going up against the Bulldogs, who always play the IceDogs really tough.
And we'll get into it tonight first with our game stats, brought to you by Gales Gas, your go-to gas station in the Niagara region. Not just a gas station, they're a local tradition. Because when it comes to fuel, you're going to go to Gales with their multiple locations across Niagara. So with that said, Brady Wasson opened up the scoring in the second period, 15 seconds in. No scoring in the first, Cam. Beautiful goal there by the IceDogs rookie, his second of the preseason. And you can just tell that number 66, newly given number there, has shown us flashes of why he was taken fourth overall.
No, absolutely. It was a great setup as well in the neutral zone. I believe it was Gallianov. Their line, there was a lot of chemistry, a lot of quick give-and-go plays with Zada, but in that one specifically, I believe is in the neutral zone, and Gallianov just chipped it off the boards, kind of a messy play in the neutral zone by the Bulldogs, and Wasslin went in and had some slick mitts to finish that one off to get the IceDogs on the board there, and again, up to that point, they had really played a perfect game. In the first period, I believe the shots ended 13-6 in favor of the IceDogs, so again, I thought that they played great. There was no odd man rushes the other way, and all of their chances were really from the perimeter in terms of the Bulldogs. But offensively, I think Wasslin looked fantastic. He also looked big. Again, he's a 16-year-old, but he looked a lot bigger on the ice in this one, and didn't shy away from any of the board play and things like that. But we got to see him skate very well on that play, and then finish it off with a nasty move.
And then it was at the 12:24 mark of the second period, Nick Rossetto takes the pass from Owen Protz and goes in on goaltender Owen Flores, who started the game tonight for the IceDogs. And to me, the IceDogs, they outshot, and we'll get into the shots on that, but it was a solid first period, and then we started to see a little bit of change in the way that they were playing in the second period, and you'll hear it from Coach Ben Boudreau a little bit later. He was not pleased with the way that he thought it was a little bit more individual, with guys trying to do things themselves, pinch up from the defensive side, and really cause some odd man rushes the other way. And we saw that really happen in the second period, and that's when Brantford really started to get their feet, and we saw why the Brantford Bulldogs have just had the IceDogs number over the last couple of years. Just a really tough team that you don't want to cause or give extra chances than they're given. Yeah,
I don't know what happened in that second period. And again, it really started during that 4-on-4. But there was a lot of plays where the defenseman would pinch down in low, and there was no one covering for him, and it just didn't happen in the first period. And before that goal, Owen Flores had made 3 2-on-1 and breakaway saves before that one finally went in. So just a really tough section of the game there. It's definitely fixable though, because you just got to let the D-core maybe relax, and you don't necessarily need them to step up all the time. Again, I think when you have as much talent as you do up front now as opposed to prior years, you don't really have to worry about doing that very often. But definitely a thing that can get cleaned up, and definitely hope we see that going forward.
And then 2 more goals here from Patrick Thomas from the Bulldogs side of things, both on the power play. So again, the IceDogs, that's something that they're going to want to kind of clean up there. And it was Patrick Thomas getting the first one, Jake O'Brien and Nick Lardis with the assist there. And then minutes after, it's Patrick Thomas from Nick Lardis and Jake O'Brien. So 2 of those goals that, were just top shelf on Owen Flores. I think he was screened on one of them or both. The Bulldogs got good job getting traffic in front of Owen Flores tonight. And Patrick Thomas, 2 more goals, and gives the Bulldogs a 3-2 lead at that point, 3-1 lead at that point.
Nick Lardis and Patrick Thomas are both NHL drafted players, so you're always going to have to watch out for them when you play the Bulldogs. And O'Brien is definitely going to be a high drafted player this year, so it's not like these were slouches. And again, I think on the penalty kill specifically, I thought they did okay early on, but there just wasn't a lot of clears. There wasn't a lot of getting to pucks first. And again, that might just be because it's early on in the preseason. But yeah, I'm not sure if they're set with this personnel and who they're using on the penalty kill. But definitely want to make sure that's cleaned up and see if we can't post some zeros in that aspect.
And then late in the second period, a bright spot here for the IceDogs. Ethan Zada gets on the board from Andre Lashko, the newcomer, cleaned off of waivers there. He's in the lineup, and he's looked really good so far in his first week in the IceDogs uniform. Matthew Paris gets a secondary assist, but Lashko made that play to kind of throw it out front, and it was a scramble there, and Zada was able to pot that thing in, getting good pressure around the net. And Ethan Zada, I think, is a guy that we're going to be talking about a lot this year, taking a big step.
We said that in training camp, that Zada is probably going to be the one that makes the biggest leap forward in terms of year-over-year progression, and he definitely looked it today. That he's just more physical. He's making good defensive plays, and yeah, offensively, I think is where you're going to see a massive improvement year over year, just for Ethan Zada's game. And I was glad that he got on the score sheet here. Nice to get back within 1-2. That was right after they gave up that third goal to make it 3-1. I believe that one was on the power play. We talked a lot of last year. I think their power play was under 10%. That can't happen again. This year, they need a power play that sits at around even just league average, or 12 to 13% would be a massive increase. So good to see them get an ugly one in terms of the setup on the power play.
And then in the third period, it was Cole Brown early in the third period, and that one really felt like it was the backbreaker early on. He gets the goal from Jake O'Brien that the IceDogs are down 3-2 after they had just scored at the end of the second to cut it to 1. And that goal from Cole Brown really just felt like the IceDogs had the wind taken out of their sails right there.
Yeah, the game got really sloppy and undisciplined too. There was a lot of penalties called against the IceDogs in this one, and really on the Bulldogs as well. I believe in the third period, it didn't feel like either team was at even strength at all. But nonetheless, it just got very undisciplined, and yeah, you definitely felt the bad habits kind of come into gear in the third after that one, and hopefully we can see that cleaned up going into next week.
And then Nick Lardis, I mean, just tip your cap to him.
That was
what a rocket of a shot on the power play, getting the pass from Nick Rossetto, and again, you see why this guy was one of the Chicago Blackhawks' first choices off the board in the past 2 NHL drafts. That was an NHL-level shot there and a one-timer. Tip the cap to him on that.
That came off of a turnover on a failed clear attempt. That can't happen. Now, we heard Coach Boudreau very vocal in this one. It's a preseason, so the arena wasn't rocking yet, and you could definitely hear Coach Boudreau being very vocal, and he was not thrilled with that third period, and I'm sure we're going to hear more from him shortly. But that was off of a turnover. Just need to get it out. Those are things that absolutely need to be done. And while I thought the D-Corps did a great job defensively, physicality-wise, there was a few as the game went along. I thought in the first period, man, Van Vliet specifically, couple of really high-level plays where he, stick-checked, was able to get the puck back, and then it was a quick one-touch pass to get out of the zone. And I was really impressed with that because, that was always an issue last year, especially when we lost Wysick. So still no Wysick, so we're going to need to see them improve in that aspect. But, yeah, it really felt like a just kind of shoulders sunk situation as the third period went along.
Yeah, and you talked about being undisciplined too. I mean, there was a lot of penalties in this game, and I guess we'll get into it. I'm still in my preseason, so I skipped forward to the scoring summary. I apologize out there. I said game stats, so we already went over the scoring summary, so we'll get into our game stats tonight, and that'll be brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their up-to-date job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. As I mentioned previously, Niagara outshot Brantford 13-6 in the first period. No scoring between the two teams, but it really started to turn in the second and third period, as we've been kind of alluding to here. 17-13 in favor of Brantford, and in the third period was really when it got taken over. 19-8 in favor of the Bulldogs from Brantford, as a total 42-34 in favor of the visitors.
Yeah, and that just kind of puts paints a picture as to what happened in the second and third period. I mean, 36 shots after the first period is pretty crazy, especially when you played it almost perfect. And, I think offensively, especially in the first period, the thing that was so great to see, there was a play with Waslin and Zada in the first period, and it was just a slick give and go off the rush. And it was nice to see because it was a high-level play by players that are expected to play at a high level offensively. And you kind of got these glimpses of what these players are going to be able to do. I remember in training camp, one of my favorite lines that head coach Ben Boudreau stated was that we got guys that could score now. And, he was excited about that. And there was just some flashy plays. And Zada and Waslin really played well together. Gallianov was okay as well on that line, which was interesting because that's a really fun third line. Zada at center with Waslin and Gallianov. I think that could be really fun, especially if they're going to be able to chip in offensively. We talked about the bottom six really not doing anything offensively for the IceDogs the last 2 years, so good to see that. And then as well, Loshko and Rubric, also a lot of give and go, one-timers, things like that. I thought Rubric had kind of a quiet game as it went along. But in the first period specifically, again, a couple of give and goes, nice plays that we were normally expected. Didn't see him shoot as much. It didn't feel like he was causing a lot of havoc in terms of using that shot where he was almost a 30-goal scorer as a 16-year-old. So I have a feeling that's going to change. And I don't know if it's because he's got Loshko, who's a NHL drafted prospect, and maybe he's playing a little bit more time to get him involved. But there was a little bit of a being vocal on the ice from him that you could really hear and see. And much like in training camp with Kevin, it's good to see those guys now being leaders. I think that's an important thing for this team specifically. And as maybe a little bit of a rough end of that first game for Rubric, but there were some things early on that I really like to see.
We saw some guys get letters before we move on today. Again, no official announcement on if those are permanent or if those are just for the preseason. Captain Gavin Bryant still out recovering from his off-season surgery. So we had 3 assistants today, and Kevin He, Ethan Zada, and Ryan Rubric. Your thoughts on if those stick or not?
That's the correct, 3, I think, especially for this team. There was so much turnover on the back end, like maybe Wysick. But, he's obviously hurt, so he can't really do anything there. But maybe Paris or Levin, just because they've been around and they're really, they're very integral to the team and whatnot. But all the other new players are brand new to the squad. So I actually really like Zada and Rubric. I think that those are guys that are the foundation of the team for this generation or era of the IceDogs, and they are going to be extremely important. So it was nice to see them get rewarded.
Then we move on. We talked about it being a penalty-filled game. 3 for 7 were the Bulldogs tonight. They capitalized on 3 of their power play chances. IceDogs 1 of 6. We talked about coming into this season with the IceDogs' last-ranked power play that was at about 10% last year. It's got to be a lot better than that. I know that it's only preseason, but you noticed that they kind of looked a little bit better on the power play in that first period, the way that they were able to kind of move the puck. You saw Jack Brody out there. You saw Callum Chanowski kind of being that power play quarterback, because we know without Frolov and Podrekar, there was going to be some opportunities for guys to step up in that offensive role. No Andrew Wysick. You'd expect him to be a guy that they'd most likely look at for power play minutes. But what did you see from the power play? And it was 1 for 6 tonight, but do you see any difference from the way that they set up last year?
Well, they went 4 forwards in that first period, and again, it was a lot of good movement. It wasn't a lot of passes and hopes and prayers. Again, I think that as the season gets going, we saw in training camp that they were just working on ugly goals. And on the power play, that's what they've got to start scoring. And I think they will. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But I agree. I think that you have to hit over 10% at least to even have a shot at the playoffs here. But the first power play unit at the first opportunity of the game was Loshko, Paris, Zada, Rubric, and Virgilio, which was nice. And again, we saw a lot of good, quick movement, a lot of opportunities. Second power play unit was he, Azadorian, Levin, as well as Brody and Waslin. And I think that it's great to see that you've got 2 actual power plays now. I think that last year we just didn't have enough players that should be in a power play role, and this finally feels like we've got at least 10 players that should be on the power play.
And then I I quickly want to touch on the penalties because we're going to hear from head coach Ben Boudreau later. And we heard last year that he wants the team to play with their heart on their sleeves, and he wants them to go out there with raw emotion. We know the rivalry between the Brantford Bulldogs and the Niagara IceDogs here. They're not just both dog teams. They really don't like each other, these two teams. There's some new crossover with the teams, that players that have played on both organizations. You know, Chanowski and Noah Van Vliet here in Niagara now, along with Mason Ray. You have Zach Lavoie, who wasn't in the lineup tonight, getting the night off there, and now assistant coach Ryan Kuwabara on the bench for the Brantford Bulldogs under Jay McKee's staff. So these two teams don't like each other. We saw Owen Flores kind of get into it with the Bulldogs as he was coming across the long way after the second period for the long change to get to his bench, and there was a little bit of yapping there. So do you like to see that a little bit, or do you want to see them be more disciplined in that sense and not give a lethal Brantford Bulldogs team 7 power plays to give them an opportunity to get on the board like they did tonight?
Well, they didn't get any power plays because of the chippiness. That was like the thing. I love when they stand up for each other. I think that's a great thing. I think it builds a lot of team character. I think head coach Ben Boudreau last year in a lot of the post-game interviews that we talked about, he was proud of his team standing up for each other. It was the penalties were like slashing or hooking. It was really not much after the whistle. I thought that they stayed pretty composed in that aspect. They just got to make sure that they're confident and can kill a power play. You know, again, tonight was a rough look. It's got to be able to, they've got to be able to send 4 guys over the boards where the rest of the team is confident that they'll get through those 2 minutes.
And then as far as the face-off wins go, Brantford 39, Niagara 35. And if we go through the best face-off men on the day for the IceDogs, Loshko 16 of 23, Asadorian 9 of 19, and the 2 guys that had kind of rough days on the dot, Zada 4 of 13, Mason Ray 4 of 12, and Rubrick was 1 of 2 as well. I noticed you had kind of pointed out, I think it was sometime in the second period, that the IceDogs were having trouble winning offensive zone draws, and you felt like Brantford was way up in the face-off total, but it actually wasn't that bad when you look back at it, 35-34, so it was only a 4-win difference there in favor of the away team. But I feel like the IceDogs missed out on a couple opportunities on offensive zone draws.
Well, yeah, I definitely think it was mostly on Zada in the offensive zone. A lot of his draws, he didn't have a good night on the draw, which is fine. I think that he was a great centerman last year, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But it's awfully tough when you get offensive zone draws and then it's right out of the zone. One thing that I loved today was they were really good with their stick checks. So a lot of stick lifts, a lot of really aggressive forechecks. I saw this a lot last year with Rubrick, who would almost lackadaisically forecheck 1-on-4 on the breakout, and just because he's got such a good stick, he was able to knock it down and cause some havoc. There was a lot of good forechecking and disrupting the breakout early on in the game. Kind of went away from that, but I think in terms of the faceoffs, it's good to see Loshko, be as dominant as he was. If your third and fourth line centers are the ones that are going to have some trouble with in terms of the face-off dot, at least your top 2 are going up against the other team's top 2 most often, and they had a good night.
We're going to hear more from this post-game tonight after the Brantford Bulldogs take it 5-2 over the Niagara IceDogs. We're going to hear from head coach Ben Boudreau as well as Ethan Zada for our player interview. So stay right here. Be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
In the Niagara region, Global Pet Foods is your destination for premium pet nutrition and caring expertise. Whether you've welcomed a new furry family member or need advice on top quality nutrition, their dedicated staff is ready to help. Discover why Global Pet Foods' lesser-known premium brands outshine the big corporate names. Their team's passion ensures your pet's health and vitality. Check out one of their locations today, 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where premium brands and caring staff make the difference.
Fuel up your day with Gale's Gas Bars. They're your go-to gas stations in the Niagara region. Remember, at Gale's, they're not just a gas station. They're a local tradition. Whether you're hitting the road or staying cozy at home, choose Gale's. Gale's Gas Bars provide reliable fuel that keeps you moving. Stop in for quality you can trust and service with a smile. Don't settle for less. Head to Gale's Gas Bars today, because when it comes to fuel, you're going to Gale's! Learn more at gales.ca.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, Better Jobs Ontario information, and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicle is in top running condition through the garage's services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers can expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers who can feel confident they'll get trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your vehicles. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today at 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
This is Alex Asadorian.
Hey, it's Ryan Roberg.
This is Ivan Gallianoff.
This is Gavin Bryant.
And this is the
Dog Pound Podcast,
the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Niagara IceDogs game recap, right here on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Brandon Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you, continuing to break down the Niagara IceDogs' only home preseason game, and a loss to the Brantford Bulldogs 5-2 after getting the upper hand on them over the weekend up in Brantford. Thank you to those today watching us live on the YouTube version. Please give us a like, subscribe. If you guys want to see more of our live post-game shows, we're experimenting with this here in the preseason, see if this is something that we'll do throughout the season. And thank you to those today who tuned in to us on your favorite on-demand audio platform the next day when this episode does come out. So, Cam, before we get to IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau for our post-game show, they got one preseason game left in Windsor in about a week or so. What's something that, after you saw tonight, you want to see them, I guess, take a step forward with in that last preseason game in preparation for when the regular season begins at the end of September?
Just again, the defenseman pinching. I'd love to see a game where there's maybe 1-2 breakaways or 2-on-1s against. I think that the first period the first half of the game, they played almost perfect. And I'm really excited to see the offensive flair that, just hasn't really been a thing for the IceDogs since the Akil Thomas and Phil Tomasino era. So I'm excited to see that. But most importantly, just on the defensive side, just no pinching or less of it. I don't know how else to kind of explain it. It was just frustrating to watch because I don't know what happened in that second period, but it was just nonstop 2-on-1s and breakaways against.
We'll take you to IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau, as always, brought to you by Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012, and honor late William Robert Hunter. Here is the IceDogs head coach on his thoughts following his team's preseason game here on Sunday afternoon against the Brantford Bulldogs. Well, Coach, did that kind of feel like the tale of two games there? It looked like the first period and the first half of the second, you guys were really taking it to that team there, a team that you obviously had confidence in, beating them up there in Brantford on Friday night. What do you think really turned in the second half of that game in Brantford's favor?
Well, I think learning how to win as a team has got to be something that we obviously got to put into our minds because we haven't done a lot of it in this organization. So I thought it was really good on Friday with the game that we ended up winning, but you could even see it when we got a lead. How do you protect that lead and you go on your heels? rather than your toes a little bit. And then today I thought, with the win, we stopped getting away from our team play, and it became a little bit more individualistic. And then when we got down, rather than doing it as a team, it became individualistic. But, the great thing about preseason is it gives you coachable moments. And, in a game like that, gives you a ton of work. I mean, it's a lot of hours of work, obviously, having to correct all that, but at least it gives you a lot to work with. So for us, we made some mistakes. We ended up losing, but for a new assembled group, I think there's going to be a lot there to work with.
And it seemed like in that second half of the game there, was it something where you wanted those defensemen to start pinching up a little bit more? It seemed like there was a lot more, defensemen really pinching up on the play, trying to get more offense going, and it led to a couple more odd man rushes the other way in Brantford's favor. Was that something that you just wanted them to try out in the preseason and make sure that they were kind of comfortable with that?
No, I'm glad you recognize that's exactly what I was talking about. That is not our game plan. That's not what we wanted. And when they go in on their own page, which would have been an individual style of brand, not our team style, not the way the coach wants them to play, and then we got hurt the other way. And that's going to be one of those things you show is the difference between not pinching on a Friday and pinching on a Sunday and the chances we gave up. I mean, 38 shots against at the end of the game, you're looking up and say, wow, we really got away from our game plan. But luckily for us, it's in preseason, and so it didn't cost us anything to learn a lesson, so we'll find a way to correct that.
I know last year you said you wanted the guys to play with raw emotion, and against this team, it's a rivalry. These two teams don't like each other. There's a lot of jawing after the whistles, after the periods, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of penalties. So what's your message to those guys when they get in those situations against a team that, you don't like them, they don't like you, and being able to go out there and keep their minds straight while also leaving it all out there on the ice?
Well, I mean, I think you got to practice like you play and play every game like you would. Doesn't matter, it's exhibition, regular season, and I didn't think our guys did that. But the guys that really stood out to me as far as physical play, Mason Ray, Vermeulen was really good. I thought it was one of his best games. And I told him it was my fault. I didn't get him on the ice a little bit more because he deserved it. But when you do play with raw emotion, you're into the game, and the guys that lack that, unfortunately, haven't had success in the last two games. So they got to find a way. I don't care whether it is, and they stood out for the wrong reasons. So when they do play with the emotion, they're standing out for the right reasons, and gave a lot of praise to the guys that played with that type of raw emotion there tonight.
What did you think of so far Andre Lashko coming in off waivers, a guy that comes over from the QMJHL, an NHL drafted player? Has he come in, motivated and, wanting to make this team and wanting to make an impact so far? What have you seen from the first week of him?
Yeah, checking every box. I mean, he was their best face-off guy. He was big. I mean, he's found the score sheet every single game. I mean, he's been, everything that we thought he would be. So we're really, really happy with him so far. No complaints.
And lastly, Owen Flores getting tonight. He looked pretty solid out there. Looking at left out to dry in a couple of goals. How are you going to kind of go about this goalie rotation? I know in training camp you said that it was an open competition between the two of them, and then Matt Humphreys waiting in the wings as well. So how are you going to kind of go about this and really name a starter when you get to week one?
Well, right now, I mean, I absolutely in love with Charlie's game. I thought he was really good, and I don't have anything negative to say about Flo. I thought the opportunities that we gave up were almost unfair. Couldn't do anything. A couple breakaway goals, backdoor stuff. So, what it will be is, the guy that gives us the best chance to win night in and night out is we're going to roll with. We're here to make the playoffs, and that's what we're going to do. So, whoever gives us that best chance, that's what we're going to end up with.
Thanks, Coach. See you in about a week and a half.
Thank you.
There was IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau on the Wild Bills Auto Repair post-game show. Cam, I mean, that last quote, we'll get into the other stuff that he said, but that last part was really interesting because you think about it. Charlie Robertson didn't play tonight, and the first thing that Coach Ben Boudreau said was he was impressed with Charlie's game. Obviously, Owen Flores, as he mentioned, really didn't have an opportunity on some of those goals. He kept him in this game. I mean, he made 37 saves, but from the sounds of it, it's really going to be an open competition. This is not going to be Owen Flores' job just handed to him in his overage year, even though that's something that we talked about if he was going to be able to earn that role after being here for so long with these IceDog teams that just haven't done well. But it's really going to be a battle between these two guys on who's going to be the opening day starter.
Well, I mean, not to point out the elephant in the room here, but obviously the captain Gavin Bryan is an overage year, and he's currently hurt, so not able to play. You can only roster 3. You can only ice 3. And when you just acquired Van Vliet in a trade, and you've got Gavin Bryan as your captain, he's not going to when he comes back. Then that third spot, if Lashko, who was fantastic and definitely what this team needs. You've got Owen Flores would be the other choice, and I think that what's happening early on, I don't think tonight was on Flores. And to be honest with you, the way that first little bit of that second period when Brantford started really getting to go, before they scored that first goal, like I said, he made some fantastic saves on 2-on-1s and breakaways before that finally one went in. So it was very much reminiscent of the last 2 years where 5 goals might have gone in, but it was almost 50 shots on goal, and a lot of them weren't easy. So I think that's going to be very interesting. I think that we talked about at the end of last year that Robertson's play as the season went along, when he first got brought over, it really didn't look like it. Flores was, I think he played like 15 straight games, 20 straight games. It was something crazy. Like, they really rode him because they were still around, a playoff spot. But Robertson played fantastic in that last month of the year and really kind of, I think, forced the issue this season. He's going to get every opportunity, I think. I think that if I were to predict it, or I don't think we'll see many back-to-backs with Flores. And I think that might be a good thing because, over the last 3 years, the IceDogs have not been a good team. And Flores has really been kind of a bright spot. Him and Kevin over the last 2 seasons, 2 full seasons, I think, are the real bright spots over those last 2 full years. Obviously, there was others, but just since the 2 prior seasons. So very interesting. I think that I like that he will go and reward someone who plays well. It's funny, as this is my second year doing this with you, but my second year now really covering hockey from a different aspect and not just like a fan. So I like it when I write something down and I'm validated when the coach says it. So not to jump ahead, but I thought Vermeulen was the best player, and I'd circled him many times. He was extremely physical. He was someone that we noticed in training camp that was noticeable on every drill, every game that they played against each other, and he looks like a perfect fourth-line player. Like, he made the Potaloo jump. I think that's what we're going to coin that, all right? He made the biggest jump where year over year so far it comes out of nowhere in training camp, becomes an integral part of the team. I don't think he's going to be in the top 2 lines. I think if that happens and something went horribly wrong, but he looked great tonight. And, I hope that continues as it goes along. And I'm really happy to hear that, the pinching wasn't a system thing. And that actually is a good thing, I think, because that's something that can be fixed. If it's a system thing and they're not getting it, then, obviously that's going to be more practice and maybe we're going to have to wait a little while to see things come together. But they didn't do that in the first period, and they looked great. And they didn't really do it in the game that they won against Brantford, which is just something that you didn't see. When was the last time they beat Brantford?
Years.
Exactly, right? So even if it's a preseason, doesn't matter. It's still, these 2 teams don't like each other. We saw it today. These guys take it seriously. So, I think that shows some promise going into, the regular season. In the last game against Windsor, I would be stunned if you see a defenseman step up in an ill-timed pinch, I think, against Windsor, just based on what we heard from the bench, watching the game up here.
Yeah, that's a team in Windsor that's obviously trying to build back up the standings, too. That'll be a good test for Niagara to kind of see where they stack up against one of those teams that, on paper, they should beat now. I mean, that's when you look at it. When IceDogs are going into games, they're not going to be the team that everybody expects to take a win against. I think that teams like Windsor, Peterborough, and some of these other fringe teams, they can look at and say, we're going into these games expecting to win, just like they kind of did tonight, even though that they didn't get the results that they got on Friday night. They're not going in intimidated by any of these teams, especially that team that they've obviously had struggles against the last few years. So I hope to see that when we get to Windsor.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Windsor is... Overall roster, I think that they are behind the IceDogs, maybe by a year, but they still got Greentree. You can't give up breakaways and things to a fantastic NHL drafted player. So it's going to be tough in that aspect. But again, I think it's something that can be cleaned up. And if they just keep in the back of their mind, let's not pinch up and let's let our talented forwards take the reins here, I think they're going to be in good shape.
We'll get to our IceDogs player interview tonight before we get out of here, and that's going to be brought to you by Cully's Original Sports Bar, proud supporter of Niagara IceDogs hockey. Whether you're gearing up for the game or celebrating a big win, Cully's is the place to be before and after every IceDogs home game. Just short walk from the Meridian Centre. Cully's, it happens here, and it is with Ethan Zada after his goal tonight and continuing to build going into his second OHL season.
Listen, you look a lot bigger than you the last time I saw you. Did you grow a couple inches over the summer?
Yeah, I think so. I think like one half maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you notice that on the ice?
Yeah, I feel stronger. I feel bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. How much better do you feel just generally? You've been through a year now. How much more comfortable do you feel?
To be honest, I feel way better. I feel way more comfortable. I feel like I've adjusted to the play, and it's just a lot easier than last year, I feel.
Yeah, you look like you're out there trying to make plays this year. Well, last year, a lot of times rookies just don't want to screw up, right? How important is that to try to take it to the next level this year, make plays, and not just worry about screwing up?
Well, yeah, you can't be afraid to make plays. Plays is how you get points, how your team scores, and I feel that's what I got to do.
Yeah, and how much do you think you can contribute this year versus last year, just offensively?
I think I can do a lot better than I did last year offensively. I think I can make plays, gonna shoot more, try and make more goals happen.
Sure. Great line that you've been on so far. Yeah, a little bit of chemistry early. Did that just kind of fall together, that line, or how did that happen?
Well, me, Gally, and Waz, we went to skates all this summer. We played on like Carnival together, like a little summer league.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been with Waz. I work out with him, so I've been with him the whole summer. So I think it kind of helps.
Right. And what's it like? He's an awfully good rookie. What's it like to play with him?
He's a really good rookie. Offensively, he's the best you can get out of a rookie, I feel. I think that he makes plays that you just know that he's gonna make, and the puck just gets to your stick somehow.
Absolutely. A couple of experiences with Team Canada under your belt. How much has that helped you as well?
I think it's definitely helped me with my confidence, realizing that I am one of the top players in the country, and that I can play different roles and I can do a lot more things to help my team.
Sure, for sure. What's the difference in the atmosphere this year versus last year? I mean, because, coming in last year, there was a coaching change halfway through and all that stuff. What about this year?
I think this year we're more established. I think everyone's want to win. I think this is the group that we need to win.
Right.
Coaching staff, the management, I think everyone's dialed in on making the playoffs this year, and I think that really helps. I mean, we know that there's not going to be any much changes more, so.
Great. That's all. Thank you for that. No problem.
Ethan, when you look back at maybe going into your first preseason last year, just what's something that you maybe learned from going through it last year and getting back this year that has you've been able to elevate your game so far?
I feel like in the preseason it's more like getting the nerves out, getting ready for the season, adjusting. That's why I think preseason is good for the rookies and for me and myself to start making plays and get my confidence up that I can make these plays and get a couple pucks to the back of the net.
And obviously, point total is something that you want to increase on from last year, but what's maybe something that you worked really hard on in the offseason that you're trying to take a step forward with in your game? I know you're a full 200-foot player in the way that you play.
I think shooting more, and I think just keeping the puck on my stick, puck possession, make plays, be calm with the puck, don't have to rush, just be out there and just make sure you can find plays.
Lastly, just quick thoughts on some of the older guys that you brought in, the Van Vliets, Jack Brody's a newer guy as well, and just that whole veteran decor back there with Matt Virgilio as well. What have those guys kind of brought to the atmosphere and been able to revamp the decor here in the offseason and go forward with it?
I think Van Vliet, big body, I think that he's going to be a guy in the back end that we could depend on, and I think Verge and Brotz are they can do everything on the ice. They can score goals, they can hit, they can play defense, and I think that's what we needed. They're chippy, and I think that's what we need on this team.
Thanks, Ethan. Good luck, and look forward to seeing you in the regular season.
Thank you, Caputo.
There's Ethan Zada on the Cullies post-game show. Cam, good thoughts there from Ethan Zada. I mean, this is a guy that now has 2 gold medals for Team Canada, this time most recently at the Gretzky-Holinka Cup. You can just tell on the ice and off the ice, he's a lot more confident in the way that he can go and give his ability out there. I mean, we talked about him being an X factor on this team, but you just heard from him specifically. He believes that he's one of the best 200-foot players in the country right now, and he believes that he can take a step in his offensive game, and he really believes that he can be a more offensively minded player, have that puck possession, be able to take more shots, be able to just create more offense, which, as you mentioned in the training camp video, he was mostly a penalty killer and a defensive guy, which we know that's a strength of his game, but you want to see his point totals really double or even triple this year, taking 5th overall last year, and you just see already the stature of a guy like Ethan Zada and how he could be so valuable to this team.
Well, we talk about whenever a player gets to go to a rookie camp or an NHL prospect camp, that they come back just with more confidence, and whether they say it or not, you can see it. And I think that when you watch an OHL game, the players that are comfortable with the puck is where the ones that are most confident, that are confident holding on to it. They're not looking to just immediately get rid of it. And you could see it early on in this game as well. I think that him and Waslin there was a couple plays that I had marked down just early in that first where they were off the rush, give and go, knew where each other were going to be. And like I said, it's going to be very exciting. I think that if Waslin is what everyone, even outside the organization, think he is, and that's a potential future NHLer, that it is going to be awfully fun to watch them play. And this is, again, that was their third line. So, they're not going to go up against the top lines, and I think that you're really going to see a chance for him to really shoot up in terms of offense. I'm glad that he talked about shooting more, because he definitely felt like a passenger when he was on his lines offensively. He was always looking for the play as opposed to trying to take a shot to score it himself. And I think adding Waslin in there, and Galyanov as well, if that line sticks together. He talked that they played together during the summer. Galyanov's just a hound on the puck. He reminds me a lot of Asadorian, where he will just, if he loses it or if it's a 50-50 puck, he just battles really hard for it. But the confidence you can definitely see, you can definitely hear, and I'm really excited to see it, because we also haven't mentioned that this is his draft year. So that's important to him. He's played for Team Canada already with among the best players in the world that of his peer group, right? So I think that you see Kevin get drafted. You hear about what Rubrick is, projected to go, even Waslin. And I think you see this is the benefit of getting players drafted, is that now your peers and your players and your team realize that this is possible regardless of the situation, and now it's kind of a high tides raise all ships situation here. And I think that he is definitely going to be the player that explodes in terms of year-over-year improvement, and I'm really excited for it.
Anything else you want to quickly mention about the lineup combination before we move into the player of the game?
No, I think that it all made sense. Asadorian back with Kevin He. I think that was really fun. You saw Kevin get kind of just annoyed in that third period. He started to see flashes of why people voted him to be one of the best skaters in the OHL, and it helped get him drafted in the fourth round. So that was really fun. And then, again, I think it was more pairs than lines, because I really know Levin and Paris are so quiet just on the ice, but when they get their opportunities, they make it happen. But they aren't usually the focal point of the play. That isn't a bad thing. It's just usually what happens. And then Rubrick and Loshko, who looked fantastic later on in the game. And then again, as we've mentioned, Zada and Waslin. But I do want to point out, Vermeulen had the most impressive game start to finish. He was physical. One of his plays, he ran over two guys, which ended up being a turnover the other way, and then he drew a penalty as well on that play. They didn't score on it, but that is fantastic from a fourth line. And again, I think that he's going to be very important in the lineup for sure. The decor as a whole, I thought they played very physical. It was good. And then just stop the pinching. Whatever that was. And, I have a feeling that Coach Boudreau is going to address that for sure. In terms of my player of the game, you want to do that?
I'll get into it in a second, but Max Crete was not in the lineup. Look forward to seeing him in the lineup too, because I really think that he's going to be a guy that the Ice Dog fans will really love, the way that he's a dog on the bone mentality. Darcy DeWatcher was the extra defenseman tonight in place of Nick Frasca, who was out the previous two games. So DeWatcher was in the last two games, but did not was scratched tonight
Frasca
here with Frasca as the third round rookie there, being the sixth defenseman.
Broke up a 2-on-1, played it very well, and I noticed a couple plays again physical, and again early on when you get drafted, that's the part where Ethan talked about it. You're more just trying to survive. You want to, you're not really thinking about making plays. You're trying not to make the wrong one. He was very physical. I thought he played decent defensively as well. And in the high danger chances, he was able to stop quite a few of them. So, no, I thought that was a pretty good debut.
And we'll get into it with our stick tap of the game, brought to you by Hockey Stickman Pro Stock Sticks, from major junior teams right up to the NHL teams for half the price. A stress-free shopping experience from start to finish. Check them out at hockeystickman.ca to join their mission in saving hockey families money. hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm to get $15 off your first order. Cam, who's your player of the game tonight?
I am going to go with our first-round rookie, Brady Waslin, tonight. Had a fantastic goal, really noticeable, looked bigger. I don't know how we did training camp, a couple weeks ago. He just looks bigger, and you can see why he was so highly touted in this draft. I'm stunned that he fell to 4. I think a lot of people were, and the Ice Dogs got a good one. But just his skating, that creativity throughout the whole game, and then the ability to bury. He almost had another one as well, a little flutter that he tried to just kind of flip over the shoulder of Igorov, but he almost had a second one. But nonetheless, I'm really excited for his season. I thought that he played the best game all the way around from start to finish, but I do have to give a shout out to Vermeulen, who was very impressive as well.
Well, Cam, thanks for doing this, and look forward to getting back. It's going to be a while before our next game recap here at home because their home opener isn't until that first Sunday of October. So they've got one more preseason game, and then the first road trip of the season, and then they play in Oshawa before they get their first home game. So look forward to getting back at this. It's been fun to do it YouTube Live, and look forward to bringing the coverage all season long. So thanks again.
Absolutely excited to get back at it.
That's going to wrap up today's Niagara IceDogs game recap following their 5-2 loss at the hands of the Brantford Bulldogs in their only home preseason game. Right here on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of their great Niagara region locations. Thanks to those today who tuned in on our first YouTube live version. Make sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell if you want to see more content from our YouTube side. And thank you to those today listening on demand the next day on the Monday when this episode does air on all on-demand audio platforms. So for Cam Halbert, my name is Brandon Caputo, signing off live from the Meridian Centre. And for the IceDogs preseason, we'll see you guys again in a few weeks. And that's it. We'll talk to you again very soon.